Please close your eyes, turn around, and count to 9. When you open them, I will be gone.
Okay. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Spartans said they were tougher. The Spartans said they would flinch. And they did.
And welcome to another episode of the SD Farrell Show as we are back from hiatus. Back.
Let's go.
That is right,
Let's go.
Matt.
Back.
After about 2 months of recharging and probably doing nothing productive.
I've spent the last 2 months sewing every single hoodie and t-shirt and hat that I could get my hands on. So yeah, it was productive over here, Justin. I don't know what you've been doing, but yeah, I've been trying to deliver NIL collective greatness to East Lansing here. So but again, we all have different hobbies.
Wow. This
trying.
guy putting the program on his back.
I'm trying.
Yeah, it's been a long 8 weeks of discourse, of narratives, of agendas,
Sure.
of takes, of speculation. And we're here to talk about some of those aforementioned topics that have plagued the offseason, the longest offseason of pretty much any sport that I follow. And, well, Matt, there's a lot to talk about. And in this episode, that's going to be basically restricted to just discussing Michigan State's offense. We will also be talking about the defense in another episode. And obviously, with the offense, there are some very, very obvious competitions. There are some polarizing, I guess, discussions that are related to the quarterback battle and debating whether or not the people up here are nice, or at least as nice as they may be somewhere in the South. And kind of just what the battle is shaping up as and kind of what the other positions are looking like, running back, receiver, tight end, offensive line. We're going to dive all the way into that. Matt, last year the offense was not good.
I didn't have a good time last year at all. Respectfully, look, these kids try their hardest. Student athletes, They represent Michigan State so well. I've had more fun other falls than last one. No offense. Again, very hardworking kids. Love every single Spartan as if they're my own child. But I could do more than 5 wins this year. That's just me. Not to be picky, but yeah.
Personally, for me, the offense was more disappointing than the defense. Obviously, the defense was statistically much worse. But the relative to the health and talent that was available throughout the 12 games is why I arrive at that answer. Now, a good chunk of that blame falls on the quarterback play. I think I would put more blame on the quarterback than I would on maybe play calling, even though play calling did leave a lot to be desired, especially some of the second and 10s, maybe even some of the first and 10s that led to third and longs. And then sometimes when they did get a third and short, they couldn't get the 3 yards that you would expect a team of this caliber to get. So there's more than enough blame to go around. This year, that blame cannot be placed on last year's quarterback, Peyton Thorne. It is time for one of the other 2 quarterbacks and Jay Johnson to prove that it wasn't all just on play calling last year and see if it was indeed quarterback play. And if not, well, then some of us may owe the dearly departed Peyton Thorne an apology. But Matt, what do you make of the significance of Thorne's departure now that we've had a few months to kind of let it marinate?
It opens up the door for maybe Michigan State to find an identity this year. Look, we are going into the 4th year under Mel Tucker. And what's the one? Well, okay, there's maybe a few knocks from a lot of pundits out there. But specifically the Michigan State folks, what's one knock is that, well, there's really not an identity of this team. What are you going to get when you face Michigan State? It's been kind of different all 3 years. So as you're breaking in a new quarterback, maybe not going to be as reliant on the passing game. You may see those pass to run ratio splits go more towards the run, because maybe it's not just also, hey, just the quarterback position. Look at the running back too. There were some issues last year. Let's not get it twisted. Michigan State was amongst the worst in the Big Ten, if not the country, in many short yardage running metrics. They shore up those problems by getting Nathan Carter, Jaron Mangum, a good, stable offensive line depth, Justin, for the first time in a long time here. So it could be a just a nice little blend between, hey, breaking a new quarterback. All right, Peyton Thorne's gone. We're not going to rely on a third-year starter here. But also, okay, maybe this is more of the, and I know the old heads are going to like this, the pound green pound identity that Michigan State once had in the days of yore, Justin. So that's what I make with the whole quarterback departure, is that, well, maybe this is a good time to maybe kind of make ourselves that ground and pound team that Michigan State was many, many moons ago, but it could shape up to be an ideal year for it. That's how I see it.
That's a great summation of the opportunity in front here. Also, I think if there's people that were holding out hope that Peyton Thorne would play as he did in 2021 again in 2023, I'm here to tell you that I personally did not believe that was going to happen. Unless Nathan Carter was pretty much as good as K9. I think he's going to be much better than Jalen Berger, but I don't think he's going to be on a Doak Walker finalist list. And I think in order for Peyton Thorne to play like he did in 2021, that it's kind of the running game that he would have needed. Because if you were able to see the all 22 footage or the press box view of how Peyton Thorne played, even some of the throws that were completed, some of the Keon Coleman and Jaden Reed jump balls, it was those guys having 3-4 steps on the corner as the ball was being released, then ending in a jump ball catch because the ball was underthrown. Or he would have hit Jaden Reed with a nice throw, while 12 yards to the right of that, Trey Mosley was wide open for an even easier completion. So it was, at times when he looked good, it was still not the best play that could have been made. And other times when he looked bad, it was a sort of a byproduct of not having one-on-one looks all over the field because the defenses were no longer stuffing the box with 7 or 8 because K9 was no longer there.
Yep.
I say all of this to say that I don't believe that Peyton Thorne was ever going to be the quarterback he was in 2021 because he was not going to have K9 again. Now we'll see this fall down south if that is accurate or not, but that is what I'm confident in asserting as my opinion there. As a result of Peyton Thorne kind of not being what he was going to be in 2021, I did not view his departure to be significant at all. I said back on the episode right after he left that this is an opportunity for Michigan State to now set up their next 3 to 4 years of quarterback play in exchange for maybe at most losing one win above replacement at most. It's not out of this world that whoever wins the job this year may play better than Peyton Thorne did last year. Maybe it's sort of wishful thinking to say it'll be a massive improvement, but I don't think it's out of this world to say that maybe a QB rating of 8 or 9 points higher than what Thorne had last year is off the charts unrealistic. So with all of that said, I do think that I am ready to confidently say who's going to start week 1.
Okay.
I am not confidently willing to say that this guy is indefinitely going to be the starter or he is the starter for the season. But I am, as I wrote earlier this week in my preseason depth chart preview, that Noah Kim, it looks like he is going to be the starter for the Central Michigan game. Nothing formal has been announced or decided, but I'll explain my rationale as to why I have arrived at that opinion. But first, Matt, I want to ask you what you think about possibly Noah Kim over Katin Hauser.
I can't be too shocked, right? And I'm not displeased by any stretch of the imagination. I'm kind of looking at it, well, the same way the coaching staff looked at it when Peyton Thorne exited the door at the 11th hour of the transfer portal window being open. There wasn't a lot of scrambling going around, the football program. There wasn't a lot of panic, of course. Was there surprise? Sure, yeah, maybe. You could very well see why you'd be a little surprised at a 2-year starter splitting town to go down to Auburn. But I don't really see any fire alarms being pulled around because I think they didn't think that there was that big of a gap between Peyton Thorne and who was behind him, whether it be Katin Hauser or Noah Kim. Now, we did leave those spring practices with Noah Kim having the sizable lead over Katin Hauser. At least that's how I perceived it. And some people in the know have perceived it as well. But yes, the gap has closed a little bit, but just not enough to where, Noah Kim, the senior guy, not, senior by class, I just mean the older quarterback, what I mean by that, is going to get the nod here to start against Central. But yes, it's going to be fascinating how they're going to do this. Does Noah Kim just get the start until he falters against Central? Is it going to be every other series? Is it going to be, hey, you get the first half, Katin gets the second half, and if we go to overtime, well, Sam Levitt is going to be our quarterback? Who knows how they're going to do it? That's going to be a fascinating story to follow here the first 2 weeks. But yeah, look when Katin Hauser is on your projected depth chart at 24/7 Sports, I'm not flipping over tables. I'm like, well, yeah, we've seen this kid in a very small sample size, but he seems fearless. He's making good throws. He's got good established rapport with a lot of these receivers that didn't start last year, and neither did Noah Kim. So they got a lot of good chemistry going on between those two groups. I'm cool with it, man. I'm chilling. I'm kind of just like the football staff, just watching Peyton Thorne leave. Hey, let's just figure it out, see how it works out. I mean, you do get Central and Richmond to start off. It's not like you have Washington week 1. That I might feel a little different about it. I might be a little more anxiety riddled than I already am, but yeah.
So yeah, all good points, Matt. This is how I arrived at the assertion that Noah Kim will be starting week 1 against Central. 2 components.
Okay.
1, I tweeted about a week ago when I was kind of fielding questions on Twitter that I believe that if 2 guys are close, Michigan State should start the quarterback that has the higher ceiling.
Okay.
Just because they're not going to win the Big Ten title this year, most likely. And as a result, one guy that has the higher ceiling, you rather have him play through his mistakes, get better. Your program will be better off down the road. Now, what I have learned since tweeting that is, while that might be my opinion, that opinion is not shared by the coaches at Michigan State. And as a result, basically what I've gathered is that they are making it their mission to make a bowl game this year, no matter what. So if they believe that one of those 2 quarterbacks, even if he does not have the higher ceiling, gives them even a 1% better shot at making a bowl game, that is who they will go with. Number 2, I learned that even though Katin Hauser won both of these scrimmages that occurred this fall, the scrimmages are not as big of a sample size as all of the practices that occur basically every single day. And while Katin Hauser may be winning those scrimmages, I heard earlier in the spring, now this I have not heard to be true in the fall, but I'm assuming it to be true. I heard back in the spring that Noah Kim always practiced better than he did in scrimmages. So if I extrapolate that sentiment to the fall, and I'm being told that practices are going to have higher weight than scrimmages, along with the fact that I know that they do not believe what I said about the higher ceiling being the tiebreaker, I have come to the conclusion that I can say fairly confidently that Noah Kim will be taking the first snaps. How do you now feel about that thought process, how they arrived at that potential decision, Matt?
I understand the thought process. I'm not seeing it as clearly as, the guys that are actually in the football building, because between the 2 guys, let's say player A can get you to a bowl game, but player B has the higher ceiling. I still think that player B can get you to a bowl. Look, getting to a bowl game is not impossible, guys. It's 6 wins, 5 if you had a really good APR score the year before, but I'm not even going to let myself think about that until like week 11 or week 12. A decent quarterback that does eventually have a higher ceiling, you could start building that ceiling just with a 6-win season. Get yourself to the Quick Lane Bowl in Detroit. That's fascinating. That is the thesis of this season, is just to make a bowl game by any means necessary. I think you can do that by molding in a guy with the higher ceiling. So that's puzzling. I'll use the P word. Puzzling is how we do that. But again, let's not kid ourselves. Like, we know who we're talking about. Katin Hauser, probably the guy with the higher ceiling. All right. But look, Noah Kim, no slouch. I mean, I think he can deliver a good season for Michigan State. I don't think it's like, oh my God, I can't believe they're starting Noah Kim. His ceiling might as well just be as high as a deck of cards on the floor. Like, I think he's got a decent ceiling, but
Right.
Wow, that's an interesting way to go about that, though.
I agree.
I'll talk
I
with Mel after this. Yeah,
yeah.
we'll talk with Mel and Jay after this and see.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I don't have much to add about anything you said there. I think we can now just dive into what both of these quarterbacks will provide, the pros and cons for each of them. Starting with Noah Kim, the pro side, I think we saw a good amount of that last year in the drives that he was in. Led a touchdown drive almost every time he was in.
Yeah.
I do think people are putting too much weight in that, which I'll get to on the con side. But continuing with the pros, he simply is a gamer. You throw him in chaos and he thrives. You throw him in there with little prep, little organization, he thrives. He has a live arm. He has good ball placement from what we've seen in games. And yeah, he's athletic as well. Now him running at like 192 does scare me in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
But he is athletic. He is mobile. You can't discount that just because he might have a slight frame. And he has juice. Like I don't know exactly how to define that, but he just has juice.
Right.
On the con side, speaking of leading a touchdown drive almost every time he was in, he was playing against base shell defenses pretty much all of those touchdown drives against either A, backups, or B, starters that didn't have a lot of stake, or the game didn't have high stakes. Now, that does not mean that it doesn't have any significance, because there's lots of quarterbacks that come in garbage time that do not play that well. And the ball placement, especially on that throw to, I believe, Montori Foster, that cannot be discounted even if you are playing against nobody. You could be playing 11-0. That means something. However, I just want people to understand that if he's the starter, he's not going to go out there and lead touchdown drives 68, 75% of the time. That's just not realistic. Second of all, I hear a lot about him being 41-2 as a starter in high school. And that is wildly impressive. That gives Trace McSorley vibes. Another guy, undersized, mobile, gamer, Ashburn, Virginia. He fits the Noah Kim comparison to a T.
Love it.
I do want to caution, though, that there are a lot of quarterbacks out there that could have played in Virginia and have gone maybe not 41-2, but let's say within 1 or 2 games behind that. So it's all relative. Those are the only 2 things I wanted to say is the high school record doesn't mean as much to me as people are saying. And do not have crazy high expectations just because of the touchdown drive rate he led last year. All that aside, you have to be pretty good in order to make your head coach possibly overlook the guy that he brought in as their heralded recruit in order to start you. I think I'm still sticking with what I said about the quarterback this year will play slightly better than quarterback play last year. I said that would be true no matter who won, in my opinion. I'm still sticking with that if it is Noah Kim. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see what he does. I don't necessarily agree with the rationale, kind of as you were saying as well, but I think excitement and fresh air are kind of the two terms I would use to apply to this case.
And you like a quarterback with like a sleeve of tattoos as well. Like let's not discount
Can't hurt.
that. We're talking intangibles here, but no, like it is the thing that you said about juice, right? Like it just sounds so ridiculous. It's not on a box score. You can't really quantify it, but he really did look fearless when he did get in these games. And like, look, it's not lost with me who this was against. It was against the Akron Zips, and then I think it was Ohio State's backups or something like that. But still, did not have the deer caught in the headlights look, or did not let the moment get too big for him. And I know that sounds ridiculous, like who lets a moment against Akron get too big for them? Backup quarterbacks, they don't get a lot of playing time. All right, so when they're in there, they try to do too much sometimes. He played it to a T. He was cool, calm, collected. So I don't know, small sample size against maybe not the most stingy defenses or the most talented guys on the field, but I looked every bit of, why he did go 41-2 in high school. I just, he does offer a lot. I mean, yes, slender frame, but he does have those live legs. And I know that there's a very thin line in college or just quarterbacking in general between scampering too early, getting happy feet, throwing off center, and then actually like using your legs to extend plays, making throws on the run. So like, can he be on the right side of that line? Again, in the 2 seconds we saw him last year, it looked like he could, but it's again, easier said than done. It will be a good test though, week 1 against Central, no matter who wins it. And I'm not calling Central Michigan, the old 2013 MSU defense, the no-fly zone, but they do return 10 starters from last year. It'll be a moderate test to see, okay, just how far along are these guys, get their feet wet. Let's start to actually make judgments that aren't just on a spring practice on Big Ten Network in the spring or against Akron's second string in the fourth quarter. Like it'll be nice to actually see them against a defense with a pulse and some talent.
Right. Yeah, and speaking of Central returning some talent, their cornerback Dante Kent, as good as they come. I talked to him a little bit this offseason. He had some big time programs coming after him to enter the portal.
I'm sure.
And he's sticking pat with Central, and Michigan State will see him in week 1. Shifting gears to Katin Hauser, the pros and cons of what we'll see. I assume we will see him in the Central Michigan and Richmond games. He's the guy that is going to have higher highs than possibly Noah Kim, but also probably lower lows. So one play, and I don't know, say the third quarter of the Central Michigan game, you might see him throw a 42-yard opposite hash, like perfect breadbasket back shoulder throw. And then 3 drives later might bounce the slant because he didn't have the full reps that he needed at St. John Bosco because Pierce Clarkson's dad was the Steve Clarkson from the QB retreat and whatnot. At the end of the day, though, whether it's politics or not, it hurt his live reps. Now, with that, though, as you had said earlier, I would like to see him play through some of those live reps and play through those mistakes in a game. But that's a different discussion. But yeah, that's kind of how I would summarize it. He would probably make some absolutely mesmerizing throws that show like next level arm, while also kind of having a good amount of freshman or redshirt freshman mistakes. That's what it seems like Michigan State is not ready to gamble on. And that's kind of how I would summarize his game. But yeah, another guy, just mobile. His frame is 6'4". I think 220 is what he's listed on the roster. I was told he's up to 228. But yeah, prototypical arm, prototypical size. Maybe the more live scrimmage and I guess team drills and stuff that he gets to take the pictures changing on him from the defense, the more blitzes he takes, maybe the processing and stuff like that, the reps that he gets in practice could help bridge the gap throughout the season. I don't know how likely that is. I think live reps would be more beneficial, but yeah, it seems like that's kind of where that stands. I guess any thoughts from you, Matt, on maybe what Katin brings to the table or just anything regarding the quarterback topic before we move on to other positions?
100%. We all know about his arm, the strength. He showed up really well at the Elite 11, good accuracy, but it's the legs too that really kind of, this is maybe why there's the higher ceiling here, because he's got the tree trunk legs, and you see it all the time in football for a very long time. A mobile quarterback can change some things, and he runs with power. He can run with some speed, some quickness, and just durability as well. It sounds foolish to just, talk about, hey, height, weight, yada, yada, but guys, it actually does matter sometimes in football when you're just getting leveled however many times a game. Hopefully it's not a lot this year, but let's not kid ourselves. Big Ten can be physical. I don't hate the running option that Katin Hauser brings to the table here, especially, hey, you look at the NFL, you see the Josh Allens of the world, or hey, over in your neck of the woods, Justin Thind, the Jalen Hurtses of the world. Like having those quarterbacks, those big body quarterbacks that can run and be durable, it can add another dimension to your offense. And so if we have that, fine. I'm chilling. I'm having a good time with that.
Yeah. That pretty much wraps up the quarterback discussion. I think either way, we'll probably see more of a running threat from the quarterbacks. I think the fact that the backup being able to come in and not being a huge drop off would maybe free MSU more to opening up their quarterbacks to the possible injury risk of that happening. Or maybe not, but that's kind of the way that I would see it. That's the way that I would kind of run it. But speaking of running,
hey,
Matt,
hey,
the running backs.
Yes, let's go. Yeah, man. It's gonna be a little different than last year, I think.
The running backs are back.
We're handing the ball off to guys that are built like Hummers, and guys.
The new 1,000 horsepower Hummer EVs.
That is a very nice vehicle, by the way. That's right.
American as a company man, I had to throw that in.
One time for GM. Great craftsmanship there. That's the nicest way I could put it. Is this year, men will be running the ball. Is that not like? I don't feel good saying it, but like, let's have an honest dialogue here. The 3rd and 1s, the 3rd and 2s we were running last year. not being handed off to the correct personnel that you'd want in a Big Ten football game.
Oh,
Is that mean, or is that just being honest? If we're just going back to last year and taking a look at what happened, and it's not just the eye test, but also the numbers as well, man. It was dreadful.
There is definitely an art form to running the ball in close yardage situations.
Yeah.
You see very good running backs across college football that, for example, look at Michigan. Both Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards are very good running backs. I think both will do well in the NFL. Both are very hard to stop in college. But the splits of red zone effectiveness between Corum and Edwards are pretty jarring. I don't have the stats in front of me, but Blake Corum was far more effective at scoring from like inside the 2 or the 3 than Donovan Edwards was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I see with how big of an asset Jaron Mangum could be for Michigan State this year. He had double-digit touchdowns at South Florida last year. He was recruited by Mel Tucker back at Colorado, and even back there, while Jarek Broussard and some other guys were getting kind of the open field touches, he was the power back in short yardage situations back then. I think that Michigan State's 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, goal line within the 5 formations, he will be a massive, massive addition in that regard. Even if he only has about 5 touches a game, I think the difference with how effective those 5 touches will be than last year when they were trying to give the ball to Jalen Berger or Jarek Broussard in those situations, it is massive. Now, with that said, the real exciting addition this offseason, it is the Carter 5, Nathan Carter.
God, I love that nickname. That's a great nickname. Yes, sir.
Man, I will cede the floor to you. Tell us about why we should be so excited about Nathan Carter.
Well, Justin, little known stat here has never been said on a Michigan State show before. 4 games for good old Nathan Carter last year, a strong 4 games, quite literally a strong 4 games, because he led the nation in yards after contact in those 4 contests. Also, if you have at least one functioning eyeball, you have seen a picture of him on Twitter or Instagram or wherever Michigan State puts out their fine media, and this man looks like he could star in the Incredible Hulk with no CGI needed. He could break me in half, probably even just by looking at me. That's how strong this guy is. Because here's the thing, too. We got bigger running backs. Jaron Mangum, Nathan Carter. You know, we got some beef. But it's not just like, hey, we're big, we're going to hand the ball off to them. Because however many years ago it was, I think it was the 2019 season. I might be off by 1 year, but we give the ball to Connor Hayward on short yardage, Ladarius Jefferson in short yardage, 2 big back running backs, and they could not get it done. Drove me up a wall, probably drove you listening up a wall. It's like, these guys are massive. How are they not getting through the chains on 4th and 1? Just like you said, Justin, there's an art form to it. Jaron Mangum, just like you said at USF, made it happen. Nathan Carter, again, short stint last year, but that's a man that could also run a football as well on short yardage situations. Not just short yardage for Nathan Carter. He can just run the ball, whatever you hand it to him, whatever down it is. So that's going to be a delightful, delightful sight this year. And I'm also all in on Jalen Berger as well. Look, I think he had a really good end to his season last year. This last month, 5 yards per carry really came along. Now, was that because that the offensive line was starting to get some cohesion after their really slow start, not just in the season, but the offseason as well? Maybe, but I think we got a great 3-headed horse here, man, of Jalen Berger, Nathan Carter, Jaron Mangum, maybe even Jalen Barberin, whose name I keep hearing in camp as well. We'll see. We'll see if the body can get up there. But that's another fascinating wrinkle too. This not a Cali.
Yeah. No doubt. Everything you said there is all facts. This is going to be a 3-headed running back room. I do not expect Nathan Carter to have a Kenneth Walker type of a workload.
Right.
I think his yards per carry will be very impressive, but I don't think his volume will necessarily need to be off the charts, especially in the early parts of the season. I think you're going to see Jaron Mangum poach several goal line touchdowns from him. You're going to see some nice runs sort of in the middle of games from Jalen Berger as well, while spelling Nathan Carter in some of the traditional formations. And then pretty much everything else besides that is going to be Nathan Carter. So that's going to be great to see the balance there. Let's talk about the O-line. We'll circle back to receiver and tight end after this. But I really liked what you said about the cohesion of the offensive line. Once Jarrett Horst, who was going to depart after last season anyway, I think stopped playing a few games before the season ended, if I'm not mistaken. That allowed Brandon Baldwin to enter the fold and play pretty well.
Yeah.
I don't think he lit the world on fire, but in terms of the expectations that I at least had, and I think a lot of people had, that maybe even Michigan State had, is that for a kid that just started playing football as a senior in high school, then had his first JUCO season canceled because of COVID, then redshirted his first year on campus at Michigan State. So he played one live season of football in the 3 prior seasons before he played in 2022. And that was in high school. And that was his only season of playing football. That guy came in there and looked part of the level of competition he was playing in. He looked the part of the rest of the unit. To me, he is at least a year ahead of his developmental timeline, if not more. I thought maybe as a redshirt junior is when finally Coach Cap would have been able to develop him into being a guy in the playing group. Now, what I'm hearing is that not only is he still firmly in the playing group, as you would have assumed since he started at the end of last year, but he might possibly win out at the left tackle job ahead of Keyshawn Blackstock. And that is not because Keyshawn Blackstock is underwhelming. And we'll see what happens if that is the case. I'm sure I would expect a rotationary basis across the whole line, pretty much, except at left guard and center. But if that were to happen, I think Blackstock could either play right tackle, he could play right guard. But most likely what I'm going to run through that I see kind of being the first team and second team there, taking rotations aside, is left tackle, you're looking at possibly Baldwin or Blackstop. You're looking at left guard of J.D. Duplain. You're looking at center of Nick Samac, right guard of Gino Vandermark, right tackle of Spencer Brown. Now, right behind Spencer Brown, just like that battle between Baldwin and Blackstock, is Ethan Boyd, finally showing the toughness and the nasty streak that he needed. He always had the size, he always had the technique, but he did not have that tenaciousness. He has turned that into a very legitimate competition. You have a left tackle and right tackle competition now where there is not going to be much of a drop off if they have to go back to those guys. I was not expecting that a few months ago. I was expecting either Ashton Lepo or Ethan Boyd to be ready to do that next year.
Okay.
And then Stanton Ramel or Brandon Baldwin to be able to do that at left tackle next year. Now you have about 4 tackles that you can play this year without much drop off. Then inside you have Kevin Wigginton, who's doing really well. You have Dallas Fincher, who's been there a while, and Chris Big Dooley Phillips is right up there. Yep. You are looking at about 10 guys, Matt, that are all neck and neck, other than maybe whoever's pushing Duplain and Samac. So you're looking at about 8 guys that are right there, 10 guys that you can play. What are your thoughts on all of that, Matt?
A tear could come to my eye right now, because who was it? I think it was Jay Johnson that said as much that there was a steep drop off between the 1s and the 2s last year. From all the fire and the smoke that we've been hearing this offseason, and also just the names as well, you can kind of just put 2 and 2 together here. Hey, Coach Kapilovic is known as one of the top offensive line coaches in the nation for a reason, and all those guys that you just named, whether they're the young guys like Gino Vandermark, Kevin Wigginton, Dallas Fincher, Christian Phillips, Ethan Boyd, Brandon Baldwin, these are all guys that are now in their second or third year under his coaching. So we're going to really find out how good of a coach Coach Cap is this year. And all the makings of a great offensive line are right there. So I think it will be a nice little boost forward for the running game, just from running backs, but also the offensive line as well. I cannot be more excited to watch Gino Vandermark play, though, this year. Big year for him coming up. Strong finish to the season for him last year. Also, just like Brandon Baldwin, a guy that really took advantage of some starting opportunities late in the season. I was very delighted with how well Brandon Baldwin played, especially just in those awkward circumstances of kind of, hey, well, you're kind of the starter now. Go get him, I guess, unless Jarrett Horse comes back. I don't know. Who's to say? So, yeah, I'm really trying to temper expectations for a position group that has been kind of rocky in the last few seasons. And by few, I mean maybe a little more than a few at this point. But I all the makings are there, from the coaching to the depth to the former good recruits to the experience as well with Nick Samac and J.D. Duplain as well.
And don't look now, Matt. Do not look now. But that 2021.
I am going to look now, though, Justin.
Yeah.
I am setting myself up to get hurt. I know what I'm doing here. This, but I'm going to do it anyway. because I have faith in these guys. I believe.
Yeah.
I believe.
That 2021 class. Remember the one where it was hard to evaluate everyone, and most of the guys, even at MSU, they flamed out.
Sure.
Guess what, Matt? Gino Vandermark, Ethan Boyd, Kevin Wigginton, Brandon Baldwin.
I know.
They have not. They have not done the aforementioned flaming out.
It's crazy. Like, you could just recruit, just solely recruit offensive linemen only off Zoom if this actually pans out. Like, that's all I want to see the rest of time here. Yeah. I do have my hopes up, and I'm just, obviously, as you can tell, a little scared to have my hopes up because Justin, you were 6 years old the last time we had a solid offensive line you could feel like really good about going into a season. But this could be another year.
I don't think I had even applied to Michigan State by the time or back when Jack Allen was running in for the 7-yard touchdown run against Penn State. I think I applied the year after that. So definitely there. One thing that I will say, since we can't be too positive because that's just lunacy.
Yeah, please.
While we are very impressed with the depth at hand and how they have 8 guys that are all basically neck and neck and 10 guys that they can play, that doesn't necessarily mean that the top level talent is going to be much better than last year. It's just they can sustain injuries better and the future is looking brighter. So they might not come out there and just pave the lanes for Nathan Carter left and right and open up running holes. Probably are not going to be a top 4 or 5 offensive line in the Big Ten. But what they should be is deep and bright for the future, and no excuse to not at least be middle of the pack. Which, if you're middle of the pack and you have an above the middle of a pack running game or running back, you should be a pretty average to above average offense. Which, hey, the Michigan State's not expected to win the Big Ten. They're expected to go 6-6, maybe 7-5 if you're lofty expectations.
Yeah,
what you should be getting from the offensive line should help you meet those goals. That's kind of where we're at as a big picture. At least that's where I'm at.
No, it's all what Jay Johnson said. Basically, hey, our starters and our second string, the talent fell off a cliff. That's not what he said. Those are my words. He said it in a very gentlemanlike way, but we could read between the lines there that it was steep last year, and this year it's actually looking like it can be that close if a lineman goes down, or just to keep the guys fresh. I mean, just keep the trenches fresh during a game, for God's sakes, for once. Have 5 guys that you can almost platoon with the starters. It's nice. It's just nice to have numbers. That's it.
Yeah, no doubt. Speaking of numbers, Matt, lots and lots and lots and lots of numbers exist at the wide receiver room.
Me or you might be starting this year. I don't know, man. You know what my favorite part of this offseason is? And my favorite part, I mean, it makes me want to bash my head through a wall, is like I'm just trying to get any crumb of just knowledge as to who is going to be a starting wide receiver. And anytime Jay Johnson talks, Ted Gilmore, Mel Tucker himself talks, they name all 9 receivers. Like, it's like, Trey did really good at the scrimmage. So did Montori. So did Christian. So did Alante. So did Jarrett. It's like, oh my, like you guys can't give us anything this offseason, can you?
Yeah.
Anything. Yeah. We know Trey's starting.
Yeah. That you can take to the bank.
Yeah, I know. That's it, though.
Yeah. But that is a very good summary of where things stand. Is so many guys are playing well or playing well enough to have that wide receiver 2 or 3 spot. But it's who is actually going to seize it during the season, who's actually going to play well. Now, the reason I'm not too concerned about the receiver room as a whole is the odds are when you have so many feasible options, 2 of those guys, just by the numbers game, will have to pan out this year. Like, you cannot have Montori Foster, Alante Brown, Tyrell Henry, Jerron Glover, Christian Fitzpatrick, Antonio Gates Jr., I'm sure I'm missing 1 or 2 guys. You cannot have 6 or 7 guys, and out of those 6 or 7, not have 1 or 2 of those guys play at a reliable level. And I don't know who those are. So part of this is projection and wishful thinking. Yeah. But again, like, I'm very confident that Trey Mosley is going to be better than he was last year. Volume alone will do that. I think that Alante Brown, I can pencil him in as having the second most touches at receiver. And then after that, give me either Tyrell Henry or Montori Foster as being good enough to consistently play at a Big Ten starting wide receiver level. And if not, give me Jerron Glover, Christian Fitzpatrick, Antonio Gates, one of those guys to challenge them enough to take it over by the middle of the season if they're not performing well enough.
The opportunity is there for all of them. I mean, last year, 70% of the receptions from receivers and tight ends are gone. All right, like Daniel Barker's not there. Jaden Reed, Keon Coleman, Cade McDonald, his 3 catches last year, they're gone.
Keon's bid in East Lansing is done.
Big time. Yeah, no, he posted bail and he got the hell out of here. So good for him to flee the absolutely disgusting conditions here and whatever. Yeah, so there's gonna be opportunity. We all know this. It's gonna be fascinating just to see who grabs it though. Or you know who's gonna rip a big chunk of that 70% of missed catches from last year. I mean, I know I'm jumping position groups here, but Malik the Freak, which so he got to speak to the media not too long ago, actually. Yes. And Chris Solari of the Free Press tweeted out that Malik Carr said he's growing. He's actually 6'7". And I had to double check like if that was like a parody account or if there was like some like other Twitter meme going around, like, oh, another one of those weird jokes that I don't get. But no, I guess he is actually 6'7", and he's got the basketball background, obviously, and so that's just another pass catching option that you have out there for whoever the new quarterback is, man. I don't know. It's a puzzle. I just cannot wait to find out 3-4 weeks into the season. It'll take a while to really get the clear picture, but
I think like let's just dive into tight end here because there's not really much more to add with wide receivers. Just love all the options there. But 2 of those guys are gonna have to step up and be at Trey's level. I think 2 guys will. We'll see who they are. At tight end, Malik Carr, undoubtedly tight end 1. I thought he always had the talent, but he never embraced that he was actually a tight end. I heard that in his first year of switching to tight end, which I think was 2 years ago now, he would actually outwardly say, no, I'm a wide receiver that's playing tight end. That he literally did not embrace the position. To then last year, embracing it a bit, but not actually getting there enough with blocking, to now allegedly, based on the quotes, he's fully embraced it. He's gotten better as a blocker. I think if that is actually true, that would be absolutely massive for Michigan State. Not only would that allow him to be on the field in any and every sort of situation, run or pass, that would also increase his target share, and it would make him a mismatch nightmare. And beyond him, well, I guess we'll see if that is true, but beyond him, then you can have a variety of tight end 2s. You can look at Tyneil Hopper. I heard he's a very good run blocker, but he's also very inconsistent. So he's not kind of just someone you just comfortably put in there as tight end 2 and say, oh, there's a great run blocker. But I think he should be able to hold his own for the most part. You have Jack Nickel, who was already a very good run blocker coming out of high school, trying to expand his receiving game. You have Jalen Franklin, the Wisconsin tight end / defensive end they added to the portal. You have Brendan Parachek. I don't know if he's going to be there as a blocker this year, but I think as a receiver, he might be close. Probably a redshirt candidate. But again, numbers there. Somebody needs to step up. They have the opportunity to step up. We will find out who steps up. Any other thoughts there at tight end, Matt?
No, I just need Malik Carr to say that he's a right tackle that just happens to catch balls. like start saying, no, I'm a receiver, that's a tight end, and then just like work your way up to just fully embracing the blocking thing. But no, I'm excited for Brendan Parachek, Michael Masunas, Jack Nickel. I just think that this is a bridge year. And that's why they brought in guys like Tyneil Hopper, Jalen Franklin, Adam Olafale, and the 98 tight end transfer.
Yes.
All these old guys, I think it's just like a bridge year because all the aforementioned guys like Masunas, Nickel, like they're redshirt freshmen or just true freshmen. So I think one more year until like we really start to see those guys blossom.
Right. Yeah, for sure. But I guess that any overarching thoughts on the offense here, Matt, before we wrap it up?
It's a mystery, but I'm excited, man. There's a present under that tree. I'm excited to open it. Now, what on earth it's going to be, I don't know, but. Yeah, so many storylines. I can't remember a season where there's just been this much mystique in the air around the offense. I mean, you got your quarterback battle. That happens ever so often, but very rarely do you have, oh my God, 7 guys competing for 3 receiver roles and then the tight ends. I'm excited though, man. But like you saw the work they put in the offseason to right all the runs that they could possibly do. A lot of it in the running game, which we already mentioned. So I think there's reason to be optimistic for the for the offense.
Yeah, that pretty much says it well. I think last year, Jay Johnson got a little too much blame, but at the same time, I think the offense was a little too healthy to play as poorly as they did.
Big year for him. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Big year for him. you have a new quarterback now. You have two quarterbacks now. First, you have to make the right choice of who the starter is, and second, you have to hope that that quarterback can play better than last year, which the bar is not high. And if both of those things happen, you are looking at them making a bowl game. If they do not make a bowl game, then I don't think that's good enough. So we will see what happens. Should have said this at the beginning of the show, but since we are on new YouTube and Apple podcast feeds, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. We're definitely going to need your help here early on with the algorithm. Spotify, it's still the same feed. So just make sure you're subscribed. And if you haven't written a review already, please go ahead and do so. Unless it's a bad one, then just tweet your negative feedback at Matt.
Yeah, I could take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so seriously, we need you to subscribe on YouTube. We need you to subscribe on Apple. We need you to give those thumbs ups and those likes. We're definitely trying to build up this independent sort of infrastructure we have here. Had a very good opportunity while we were on hiatus to partner with sort of a big time production company. We wanted it to be more of a catered to the audience sort of a feel, not having 100 ad reads inserted in here and there and meeting corporate sort of requirements. So in return, though, we're just asking for you guys to support as you always do. And hopefully you enjoyed this offensive preview, and stay tuned for the defensive preview here shortly. So with that, I'm Justin Thind. That's my co-host, Matt Sheehan. And we appreciate you listening to this week's episode of the SD4L Show.